Hello guys, today let's work with sum or have sum, okay, from CodingDors conditionals. So write a Python function that takes two input integers, a and b, and returns their sum unless the two values are the same, in which case it should return half of their sum. For instance, if a is 4 and b is 5, the function should return 9. If a and b are both 3, the function should return 3. Okay, which is half of their sum. So basically here, if we have two integers, a and b, and both of them are different from each other, we should just sum them and return their sum. If we have a and b and both of them are the same number, we just have to sum them and return half of their sum. Or to simplify, we can just return a or b, right? Because it's half of their sum either way if both of them are the same number. Okay, so as usual, let's take the examples through VS Code and put the examples as comment, just to keep in mind what CodingDors expect us to return, and let's paste as well the function that is defined. So let's just follow these statements. We are going to use, as we can see here, one if in the case of both of the numbers a and b are different from each other, and another conditional if both of them are equal. Okay, and then we are just returning a or b, or we can do the harder way, which is summing them and returning half of their sum. Okay, so let's do this. First, let's do if. Let's use first the example in which they are going to be different. Okay, if a is different, how can we say something is different from the other? We can use exclamation point equals to b. So if a is different than b, then we should return a plus b, right? Just like the problem asks us. Else, if a is equals to b, we are going to return or a or b, or we can return their sum divided by 2. In this case, in the easiest way, else return a, for example. Okay, in the other case, we are going to return half of their sum. If we copy this resolution and paste in CodingDors, let's fix the indentation here. Let's run, and then we can see we got all green from the tests. We can do as well, the same way we can do, just like I said, else return a plus b divided by 2. Let's put parentheses, okay, so we keep the right order of the operation. And if we use this different resolution, it's going to give us the same result, because it's the same thing. If a and b is the same number, if we sum them and then we divide it by 2, we are going back to the same value as a or b. Okay, as usual, let's use run and debug. First, let's print and call our function and give some values to a and b. Let's give, I don't know, 5 and 8, and then we can use another print, another example, and give 5 and 5. Let's give a last example, I don't know, 10 and 5 and 10. Okay, then let's begin with a breakpoint here in line 11, which is the first line our code is going to read. Run and debug. Here I'm just going to return a, just like we did in the first example. Now we have a breakpoint here, so we are going to print, but we are calling the function and sending 5 and 8 to our function. Let's step into. Now we are inside the function. We have for a the value 5 and for b the value 8, both in integers, okay, as integers. And here the first condition, a is different than b. Yes, 5 is different than 8. If we step into, we are going inside of this condition, inside of this if condition, and return a plus b. A plus b will be 5 plus 8. Now we have returned from the sum or have some function 13. Okay, let's step into, and then we print in the terminal 13. For this second example, the second print here, we have 5 and 5. We are going to send 5 and 5. The first condition, a is different than b. No, it's not different. 5 is equals to 5. Okay, so we are going to skip this condition and go right into the else condition, which will return just a, which is 5, or it could be 5 plus 5 equals 10 divided by 2 is equals to 5, just like a or b. Let's step into. We have returned from the sum or have sum function 5, and then we can print the result in the terminal, just like the last example. Now, this if condition is going to be satisfied. We are going to return a plus b, and then we have 15, and we print in the terminal, right? As always, you can see here in CodingDors some AI suggestions for the same problem, some other ways to fix the same problem, solve the same problem. You can take a look and read slowly to be able to understand the problem a little bit more. So that's it for sum or have sum. Hey guys, now let's work with absolute difference problem from conditionals in CodingDors. Write a Python function that takes two input numbers a and b and returns the absolute difference between them. However, if the absolute difference is greater than 10, the function should return double the absolute difference instead. For instance, if a is 4 and b is 8, the function should return 4. If a is 10 and b is 25, the function should return 30. okay? So here we are going to work with absolute difference, okay? When we are working with absolute difference, we are not ever going to see a result with negative numbers, okay? So if 4 minus 8 is minus 4, we are going to transform the minus 4 to positive 4, because when we are working with absolute difference, we want to know the distance between one number and the other. So it can't be a negative number, which in this case, in this problem, if this absolute difference is greater than 10, we are going to return the double of this absolute difference. So let's work slowly. Let's see the theory here. We can take a look and get some hints, and right away we can see here in absolute value returns the absolute value of a number. It returns the number without its sign, okay? So if we have negative 5, we use ABS and the negative 5 inside of the parentheses, and we are going to return positive 5, because we are not considering the sign, negative or positive, just the distance between one number and the other, okay? So that's the only hint that we have to use, the ABS, okay? So let's, as usual, copy the examples we should return, okay? Let's put as comments here in VS Code, just to keep in mind, and let's paste the function CodingDors give to us. So here we have a and b integers, okay, and we have to return the absolute difference. And if this absolute difference is greater than 10, we are going to return the double of this absolute difference. Let's see if the first condition is the most complex condition of our problem, which is if the absolute difference is higher than 10. So let's, if a, now we have to use ABS, so if ABS, absolute difference, of a minus b is higher than 10, we should return this absolute difference multiplied by 2, right? So we have to return ABS of a minus b multiplied by 2. So we have the parentheses in here, so it's going to be the first operation, and then we're going to multiply everything by 2. Else, we're just going to return the absolute difference, okay? Which is ABS of a minus b. So that's our resolution. Just to keep in mind, the first and most complex case is the first if condition. The absolute difference between a minus b is higher than 10, then we are going to return this absolute difference multiplied by 2. Else, if it's not greater than 10, we are going to return just the absolute difference. Let's copy and paste this resolution here in CodingDors. Let's fix, as always, the indentation here, and let's run, okay? And here we have passed all the tests. We have all green, okay? Keep in mind to just use the most complex case of the problem first. Use the first condition of your problem considering the most complex scenario, okay? As a tip here for defining this function, you can actually use another way to get the result of this operation, the absolute difference between a and b, without having to write every single time in your if statement and returning. You are not going to write ABS, a minus b, all the time. So you can just remove this ABS, and before our if and else condition, you can actually store inside of a variable this result, the absolute difference between a and b right away. So let's do, I don't know, result equals to ABS of a minus b, okay? And now you have the absolute difference of a minus b stored in this result variable. So now, instead of writing all of this equation over and over again, you can just use result, and result always, okay? This is going to return the same result that you are going to have using that other code, but instead you can always use just result instead of just writing this equation in every single time. Let's run and debug, as always, in VS Code. Let's print, call the function, and let's give some values to a and b. Let's say 10 and 25. Let's do one more example here. Can be 20 and just 5. Okay, let's give one more example and put, I don't know, 4 and 8. 4 and 4, actually. Now let's put a breakpoint here in line 11, which is the first line we are going to read in our code. Let's run and debug. We're going to print, but first we're going to call the function. And inside the function, we are sending 10 and 25. 10 for A and 25 for B. Let's step into, we are inside of the function now with the respective values right here. Okay, and A equals to 10 and B equals to 25. So let's see the first condition. If the absolute difference between A and B, okay, 10 minus 25 is negative 15, but we are not considering the sign because we are doing the absolute difference. So it's 15. 15 is greater than 10. So we are going to satisfy this condition. Let's step into, and then we satisfy this condition, and we are going to return the absolute difference multiplied by 2. And now we can see that our function absolute difference returned 30, okay, which is 15 multiplied by 2. Then we can print in the terminal. The other example, 20 and 5, okay, 20 minus 5, we are going to have 15. It's greater than 10, so we are going to satisfy 15. The same case, we are going to return 30. 4 and 4, 4 minus 4 is 0. It's not greater than 10. We are going directly to the else and return just the absolute difference, which is going to be 0, okay? 4 minus 4. And we are going to print 0 here, okay? As always, you can take a look in the AI suggestions of your problem here in CodingDors, so you can read slowly and understand other ways you can solve the same problem, or some other details you can add in your own resolution to keep it more complex or easier to solve. And that's it for absolute difference. Hello guys, now let's work with problem team trouble, the second problem from conditionals in CodingDors. So suppose we have a team of employees. Parameters employee A and employee B indicate if each employee is present or absent from work. We are in trouble if both employees are absent or if both employees are present. Write a function to return true if we are in trouble. So the problem is telling us that employee A and employee B can be present at work or not present at work. So if they are present, it's going to represent true. Yes, they are present. If they are not present, it's going to represent as false. And we are in trouble in this case. We are going to return true, which means that we are indeed in trouble if both of them are present at work or if both of them are not present at work. So to be in trouble, we gotta have true and true for employee A and B, or false, false for employee A and B. As usual, let's copy the expected answers to keep in mind some tips for what we should return. Let's paste here just as comments in VS Code so we can keep in mind, and let's paste right away the function. So in here we can say that we have to use if and else conditions. Because if both of the employees are not at work, or if both of the employees are at work indeed, we are going to return true, because we are in trouble in both of the scenarios. So we can begin with if employee A equals true. Okay, so employee A is indeed at work, and employee B equals true as well. So both of the employees are at work, we are going to return true. So if both of the employees are at work, we are in trouble, so we are going to return true, which means yes, we are in trouble. The other scenario is the other way around, if both of them are not at work. Let's put an elif, because we are going to use an else in the end to return false to all the other scenarios. So let's use elif employee A equals false and employee B equals false as well. Then we return true as well. Yes, we are in trouble. And else we are going to return false, because we are not in trouble in any other scenarios. Okay, keep in mind that we are using and, not or, because the scenarios where we are in trouble means that both of the workers are in the same position, the same condition. And we are going to go back to this case a little bit further to solve some easier way to fix this problem. Okay, so let's copy the solution and let's paste here in CodingDors. I'm going to fix some indentation here, the return in the right indentation. Okay, that's right, and let's run. And there we have all green. Okay, we passed all the tests. So like I said, we have a way to solve this problem with a few steps less, with only one statement. If we think about, we are going to return true if both of them are false, employee A and B, or if both of them are true. So how can we do this in the easiest way possible? If employee A is in the same condition as employee B, we are going to return true. So then we can write this in other way. We can remove this elif, because we are going to have now just one if and just one else to the other condition. Okay, so if employee A is equals now to employee B, we are going to return true, okay, because they are in the same condition. If employee A is at home, is not at work, and employee B is at home as well, we are in trouble. And if employee A is at work and employee B is at work as well, we are in trouble as well. So if one is equals to the other, we are in trouble. And else we are not in trouble, so else we return false. Let's run this again, and again we are correct, all green, but now with just two steps. Here now, let's use running debug to see how it actually works with this full code, so we can see the three different examples that we can see in here. Okay, so let's print right away, call our function, okay, team trouble, and let's put first if both of them is at work. So we are going to send true and true for employee A and B. Let's put another print here with other example like true and false. Okay, so one of them is at work and one is not. Then let's put the last case, which is both of them is not at work. Let's save and let's run. Let's put a breakpoint here in print, run and debug, and here we are printing, but we are calling the function and we are sending true and true for both of the employees. So here we expect that we are going to return true, and yes, we are in trouble. So let's step into, we are sending to employee A the boolean true and to employee B true, so both of them are indeed at work. We are inside of the function now, so we are going to pass through the first if and see if this matches. Okay, so employee A is equals to true, yes. Employee B is equals to true, yes. So we are going inside of this statement and return indeed true, and get back to our print. And now inside of our team trouble function, we have returned the value of true. So we are going to print here true. Yes, we are in trouble. In the second scenario, we are going to send true and false. So we should return false because we are not in trouble. One of them is indeed at work and one it's not. So we are going to send true and false for employee B. The first statement is not true, so we skip right to the alif. Employee A is false and employee B is false. No, employee A is true. He is at work. So we are going directly to the else, which is the last condition possible, and we are going right away to return false. Okay, get back to our print, and we printed false in the terminal. The same thing for the last case, which we will expect to return true. Yes, we are in trouble because both of them are not at work. So we send to our function false and false for employee A and B. The first should not pass, the first if, because both of them is not at work. The alif, false and false, yes, this is true. This matches. Both of the employees are not at work, so we are inside of this statement and we are going to return true, and then we can print the final result. Yes, we are indeed at trouble because both of them is not at work. As always, you can see here in CodingDors some suggestions from the AI, okay? So you can keep in mind other ways to solve the same problem. You can take a look at the theory. In this case, we didn't had to see. It was very clear that we had to use if and else. The hints is here as well for you to give a little help. And that's it for team trouble. Hello guys, today let's work with dog trouble from CodingDors. Right? So we have a playful dog that barks loudly at night. The hour parameter is the current hour time in the range 0 and 23. We are in trouble if the dog is barking and the hour is before 6 or after 22. Return true if we are in trouble. Okay, here we have some examples, what we should return, true or false. Okay, so basically in this problem, if the dog is barking, so if barking equals to true, and we are in the range of before 6 or after 22, we are in trouble, we should return true. And these are both conditions that depend on each other. Okay, so, if the dog's not barking, the hour won't matter because the dog's not barking. But if the dog's barking and we are in the middle of the day, we are not in trouble as well. The dog needs to be barking and we have to be in this period of time before 6 and after 22. Else, if we don't satisfy both of these conditions, we are going to return false. So as usual, let's copy the expected results and paste here in CodingDors just as comments, right? And let's copy and paste the function as well. So just like we saw, we just need to check if the dog is barking and what hour of the day we are. Let's do some if and else statement. If barking equals true, so if the dog is barking and, okay, because we should check both of the statements to see if we are in trouble or not. So and hour is less or equals to 6, just like they are telling us here in CodingDors, before 6 or after 22 p.m. So if hour is less or equals to 6 or more or equals to 22, then we should return true. Yes, we are in trouble. Else, we should just return false. Okay, that's the only statement that we need to check, right? Keep in mind here, it's not going to work if we keep in this way. Why it's not going to work? Because we have to separate both of these comparisons and statements. We can't use and then put an R here in the middle of the hour. And something I just forgot here, we should write hour here as well, okay? What we can do to separate one case to the other, we can put some parentheses outside of our hour statement. Okay, this way our code will understand that I have to check if the dog is barking, if it's true or false, and the hour. And inside the hour, it can be less or equals to 6, or it can be more or equals to 22, okay? So we don't mix any of these statements in the same if, okay? And else we can return false, so we are not in trouble. Let's copy this resolution and paste here in CodingDors. I'm going to fix, as always, the indentation here to keep everything all right. Here we have, as expected, all green, okay, in our table here. Congratulations, you passed all the tests. Let's use run and debug in VS Code so we can understand a little bit more of this process. But it's pretty simple if we take a look. Here, let's give some values to barking an hour, right? Let's print so you can see, after all, in the terminal the results, and let's call the function, right? Dog trouble, let's send some values first for barking. So let's say true, yes, the dog is barking. Let's say we are at, let's give 14 for hour, right? Let's give some other examples here. Let's say we are at 23 p.m. and yes, the dog is barking. And let's say the same thing, 23 p.m. No, actually, let's say 3 a.m. and no, the dog is not barking. Let's put a breakpoint in line 13 because it's the first line our code is going to read. Run and debug, okay, Python file. All right, so here we are going to print, after all, our result in the terminal, but first we are calling the function and sending this respectively. True, yes, the dog is barking, and we are at 14. Let's step into. Now we have both of the values stored in the variables, okay, barking and hour, and now we're inside of the first statement. If barking is true, yes, matches that the barking is equals to true, and we are between less or equals to 6 or more or equals to 22, no, we are at 14. So we are not satisfying this condition. Okay, so if we step into, we are going to skip this if and going right into the else and return false from our function. Just like we can see here, dog trouble returned false. And now that we have the result from the function, we are going to print false in the terminal. Let's step into, and just like that, we are printing false. No, we are not in trouble. Okay, the dog is barking, but not a time of the day that we have to be concerned. Right, let's go to the next example. Now we have sent true and 23 as hour, 23 p.m. And yes, the dog is barking, and 23 is more than 22 hours, so we are in trouble. The dog is barking in an hour that he shouldn't be barking, right? So we are going to satisfy this condition and return, just like expected, true to our code, and we are going to print in the terminal, right? You can see here, returned it from the function dog trouble, true. We are in trouble. Here you can see in the terminal as well. The last example, false. Just here you guys can see that we are going to return false because it doesn't matter the hour the dog is not barking, right? So we are not going to return true. We are certainly going to skip this if statement and go directly for the false, the else statement, right? And we are going to print false. We are not in trouble. And just like that, you can take a look here in CodingDors. As always, read the AI suggestions to keep in mind other ways to solve the same problem that you guys solved here, right? So that's it for dog trouble. Hey guys, today let's work with problem near 10 from CodingDors, right? So given an integer n, return true if it's within 10 of 50. Real quick, we can see that it's a subtraction operation, okay, a math operation. Note, ABS, parentheses, the number, computes the absolute value of a number. Of course, we are going to use absolute value here, and the absolute value is basically, we are not expecting any sign to our result. We get the absolute value of a math operation, for example. We are not considering the sign. So if we have a negative number, we are not considering negative. So we are going to print this number just like a positive one. But actually, we are not considering any of the positive or negative signs. But here we can see that we have to do a subtraction operation between n and 50. A little bit tricky, but it's just a matter to interpret text. So here we are going to do a subtraction between n minus 50, okay, and if the absolute value of this operation is within 10, then we are going to return true, else we are going to return false. Right? So let's do the problem, okay? If we take a look in the theory, you can see that we are going indeed to use the ABS, right? The ABS function, in which if we have this negative 5, for example, inside of our ABS function, we are going to return the same number, but without the negative sign, right? We can't work with negative values, right? So let's just copy these expected values here in VS Code. Let's put everything as comments, as always, and copy the function, right? So here, pretty simple, okay? We have to return true if is within 10, the result of our subtraction. So if our variable n minus 50 is less or equals than 10, we should return true, right? Else we should return false. What is missing here? Of course, the ABS here, else it's going to return a negative number if possible, right? So ABS parentheses, let's keep this operation inside of the parentheses, and then we can run this code and it's going to return all positive, because if this result, the absolute value of this operation is less or equals than 10, okay, we are going to return true, else we are going to return false, okay? But keep in mind here, if we have like a larger problem or something even trickier, we can actually be able to use this operation, ABS of n minus 50 a lot of times. For the matter of don't have to use and write every single time the same operation, we can actually store this operation inside of a variable. So let's call the variable c, for example, and here before our statement we can assign to this variable c this operation. Now we just have to use always the variable c when we are referring to this ABS value. It's just a tip to solve in the same way this problem. So let's just copy this resolution, paste in here. It's the same thing as the resolution that we did right after. Let's fix here the datation and let's just return. Here we can see we got all green, congratulations, you passed all tests. Okay, you can see it's a little bugged here. Okay, the table is passing a little this background box, but we are trying to fix some things in the website still, right? Here if we run and debug, let's give just one example to understand, okay, a little bit more. Let's give some value to our n variable. Let's give, for example, no, actually I'm going to use a few examples, okay, just 2 examples. Let's give 45 and then let's give 70, okay, 74, right? Then let's put a breakpoint here, run and debug. So first we are calling the function and sending 45 to our n variable, right? So here inside of the variable n we have 45, and now we are going to first do the operation of absolute value n minus 50, which is 45 minus 50. We should have negative 5, but in this case we are going to store in the variable c positive 5, because when you use ABS, just like if you see here in the theory, ABS negative 5, we are going to return 5 positive. So if here we step into, we should return in the variable c only the number 5 positive, right? So now we can check if c is less or equals than 10. Yes, it's less than 10, it's 5. So we are satisfying this condition. Therefore, we are going to return true and print true, okay? We can see here in the left that we returned from the function near 10 true, right? Then we can print here in the terminal. The other example, 74, we are going to send 74 minus 50, we are going to return 24, right? 24 is less or equals than 10, no, it's more than 10, so we are not satisfied in this condition and skipping right to the else, returning false from our near 10 function, right? And then we can just print false, no, the ABS value is not less or equals than 10. Okay, just so you guys can see the other way, the first example that we used, if I don't store the absolute value in another variable and just put right away the operation here and we run, we're going to return everything green once again. It's the same way to solve with just a little step more to simplify our life if you are working with a longer code or a longer resolution, right? As always, you can take a look at the AI suggestions here in our website so you can keep in mind other ways to solve the same problem. Okay, so that's it for near 10 problem.
Learning to code? Try the Odin Project Free Code Camp or CS50, but finding it too complex. Most free online coding resources assume that everything will just click right away, but that is very rarely the case. Introducing CodingDors, a platform tailored for the coding novice. We focus on simple, short problems to build strong foundational coding skills. CodingDors, simplifying coding one problem at a time. Start right now and embark on a stress-free coding journey.
Hello everyone, today let's work with missing chars problem from CodingDors, a tricky problem. I'm going to try to explain each specific case at a time, okay? Because when we are working with strings, it can be a little bit tricky sometimes, right? But let's jump right into it. So write a Python function that takes a string s, the letter s, and 2 integers a and b, and returns a new string where the character at index a and the character at index b have been removed. For example, if the string s is hello and a is 1 and b is 3, the function should return the string HLO, right? Just the 3 letters, where the characters at indices 1 and 3, which in this case is the letter E and the letter L, have been removed. So we're going to receive A and B as integers, numbers, and they are referring to the position of a letter in that string that is inside of the letter S, right? So in this example, if you have the word hello and A and B is equals to 1 and 3 respectively, in the position 1, always keep in mind when we are coding, we always start, when we are indexing, we always start counting at 0 when we are coding. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. In this example of hello, I drew here hello just so it's a little bit easier. So we have the position 0, the position 1, the position 2, the position 3, and the position 4, right? We do not count as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We start at 0. Right? We have here position 1, which it's assigned to the letter E, and position 3, which is assigned to the second letter L, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, yes, it's to the second letter L. So we should remove both of these letters. So we would be left with H, L, O, just like it's telling us here in the explanation, right? So let's do this. What's the easiest way to achieve this? We could break the string into 3 pieces. We should take the block of the string until the letter A, which is the character that we want to remove. The second block, which is the middle of the string, should be the middle of the string, which is between the letter A and B, and then the last block, which will be between the letter B and the end of our string. And then if we sum these 3 blocks, we should have a new string, but without the letters in these positions, right? So as usual, let's copy these examples as expected, paste here in VS Code as comments. Okay, let's work here in VS Code, paste as well the function. And first of all, let's just start breaking into blocks our string. So let's call first block is going to be the first part, and then in the end we can just sum both the 3 parts and have our final string, right? We can take a look in the theory, and below here we can see slicing in Python refers to extracting a specific part of a string. We can extract a substring from a string using slicing. Example, string, and we have between brackets here 1 column 4. Right? So you want to print between the letter on position 1 until the letter on position 4, right? Let's use a string, the word string, for example. On position 1, we have the letter T, right? Because S is position 0, remember? Always start counting at 0. And 4, let's count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have the letter M. So we should print just string, right? These 4 letters. But in this case, keep always in mind, when we are indexing, just like this, one point to the other, where we want to print of our string, the last position here will not be included. So if we are referring to the letter N, which is in position 4, we are not going to print this letter N. We are going to print one number before. So we are going to print just the letter T, R, and I. Always keep in mind that just the last indexing here, the last number, will not be included, right? So with this in mind, let's go, and here it even gives this example of just summing, okay, concatenating the parts that we just broke of the string, right? So let's go to VS Code here. In the first part, we should pick from the beginning of the string until the letter A, which is the position of the letter we want to take out of our string, right? So we can do first S, okay, the letter S, which is the string we are working, open the brackets, and we can start with 0, which is the first letter, column, and the letter A, which is our variable, and the position of the first letter we don't want in our final string. And always keep in mind the last position here is not included. So we are going to remove A, and that's okay, because in the position of A we are not including that letter. It's only until the letter before A. So in this case, in the first part, we are removing until one letter before the letter in position A. So then we have our first block. Now we have to take from A to B, which is the middle of our string, right? Middle. The letter S, as always, let's open brackets and set the period that we want. And now we want to take from A, but in the first position, it's included, okay, in this case. So if I print from A to B, for example, okay, B we are not including, it's all right, but A is including, and I don't want to print A, okay? So I'm going to do A plus 1, and then we are going to take the letter in one position before the position of A, right? And then we are not including A anymore, we just passed A for good, right? Column, So I want to take one position after A that I removed until the letter B, which is not included, just like in this example with A, right? So then we have the middle of our string. For good, the last part, okay, equals to the string, again, open brackets. Now we want to take from B, which is not included, okay? In this case, we are including B, and then we just have to do the same thing as we did with A, plus 1, okay? We are taking one position before B, and we want to print until the end of our string. We can just open some column here, and we don't have to assign anything before. Just opening this column, we are saying that we want to take from this position B plus 1 until the end of our string. Then we have the first block, the middle block, and the last block without including the letters on position A and B. Now we just have to return, just like the problem said, both of these blocks, and we can concatenate them using the plus sign. Pretty easy. So it can do first plus middle plus last, okay? This way we should return the string without the letters on position A and B, right? Let's copy this resolution. Let's paste here in CodingDors. I'm going to fix the indentation real quick, and then let's run, and we can see we got all green. We passed everything. You can take a look slowly on what was expected and what our code actually ran, okay? So let's use run and debug. Let's give just one example here. Print. Let's call the function missing chars, and let's give some value to the string. I'm going to give the same value that CodingDors gave to us. Let's say coding, okay? Let's put this as a string, always keep in mind. Let's put 2 positions for A and B. In this case, I'm not going to give 0 and 4. I'm going to give 1, for example, and 3. Okay, then let's save, put a breakpoint here, run and debug, right? So here we are going to print in the end, but we are calling the missing chars function and sending coding as a string and the position 1 and 3 respectively, the variable A and B, right? Let's step into, we are inside of our function, and just like I said, we have all of these values inside of our function, coding and the positions 1 and 3, right? So in the first block here, we are going to take from the coding string, from the position 0, which is the letter C, until the position A, which is set to the position 1, okay? So we are just going to take the letter C, because 1, which is in this case the letter O, is not included. So we are just going to print 0. That's what we are saying here, right? Okay, let's step into, and now we have in the first variable here stored just the letter 0, okay? Because we want to remove the letter on position 1, which is the letter O. Here in the middle, we are saying to decoding again, the string, okay? The position A, which is 1 plus 1, now we are working then with the position 2, which is 0, 1, 2, the letter D, right? Until the letter B not included, which is in position 3, okay? 0, 1, 2, 3. It's going to be the letter I, okay? But it's not included, so we are just going to print the letter D, right? In the middle here. Let's step into. So as expected, in the middle, we just have the letter D, okay? So we have C. We removed the letter O, which we didn't want, okay? From the position 1. Then we printed just the letter D, because we don't want the letter I, which is in position 3, okay? And now in the last part, we are going to print from the letter B plus 1, which is the position 4, okay? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The letter N, we skipped the letter I, which is in position B. We don't want the letter I, so we are getting from N until the end of our string. So N and G step into, and there we can see first we have C, in the middle we have the letter D, and the last part we have N and G. Okay, we just removed the letters we didn't want, which was O and I, right? So we are going to return now both of these 3 blocks that we separated together. We are going to concatenate them. Let's step into, and we just have returned from missing chars function, let's see, C, D, and G, right? Coding, but without the letters on the positions that we told our code to remove, okay, in position 1 and 3. Okay, and then we can print our final string here in the terminal. Just like that, we can work with these positions and remove these respective letters, just breaking our string in 3 parts, okay, in 3 blocks. As always, you can take a look in the AI suggestions here in CodingDors, so you can read slowly and understand other ways you can solve the same problem, right? That's how you solve missing chars. Hello guys, today let's work with problem front back from CodingDors, okay? Given a string S, return a new string where the first and last characters have been exchanged, right? So pretty simple, just like in this example code, we should exchange the letter C with the letter E, right? So we should have E in the first position, the rest of the string, the middle of the string, just like it was, and the first character here in the last position. We just exchanged one letter with the other. In this case, if we have just one letter, right, we should just return the string. So this is the first condition that we should keep in mind. If we have one letter, we shouldn't exchange anything. We should just return the letter itself. As usual, let's copy and paste here in VS Code, just like comments, right? Let's take the function as well. Now, if you take a look in the theory, right here, we can see that we can slice our string, so we can achieve this exchange of letter. We can index our string and slice. And here we can see some other examples. We can like break into blocks, break our string into blocks, so we can have the first character, the last character, and the middle of our string. So then we can concatenate all together, so we have the final result, right? There are other ways to do this. We can just return one slice and concatenate with the middle and concatenate with the first character, or we can call the first part and then determine what is the part of the string, the middle part, the last part, and then we can concatenate all together, right? So let's just do this, okay? Here let's do the first character, the last character, and then we can take the middle of our string. So the first character, let's do just first, right, is the variable s, which our string is stored. Let's open brackets so we can index the period of the position we want to take from the string. So the first character will be 0. Always keep in mind, when we are coding and we are indexing the positions of our string, we always start counting at 0. So we have the first letter. Now we can take right away the last letter. The last letter, we have the letter S again. And when we open brackets, we can use something which is length of the letter S. Right here, we are saying that we want the whole length of the string S, right? And right after this, right here, we can index the position that we want to print. We are doing this because we don't know already the size of our string. So how can we say in which position is the last letter? It can be 30, it can be 10, it can be 5, it can be 4, right? So we can use this to take the whole length of our string. And for indexing, we can do -1. Like this, we can take the last letter of our string, right? Why -1? Because when we are working with the length, it's going to take the amount of letters that are in the string, right? But in this case, when we're working with length, we are going to start from 1, not from 0. Okay, that's why we need to take the length -1, because we start counting at 0 when we are indexing our string, right? So using this, we can take the last letter. You can simplify this as well, just like we did here. If you take in the first letter, we can erase all of this and just use -1. Now, the middle part, we can just do right away in the return, or we can use here as well, middle equals to the period of our string. So we want to take from 1, we want to take from the middle, from the second letter, because the first is going to exchange, from 1 until -2. But why -2 will not work in this case? -1 equals to the position of the last letter. So if I want to take one letter before the last letter, I use -2. No, this is going to be wrong. In this way, we are going to take 2 letters before the last letter, because 2 will not be included, right? So if we use -1 here as well, we are not including -1, we are taking the letter before -1, right? The last number that we index here in this period that we are taking, this block that we are taking from the string, the last index in the last position will always not be included, right? So if we take here -1, we are going to take the letter before the letter in position -1, which is one letter before the last letter of our string, right? Then we have the 3 blocks that we need. Then we just have to return and concatenate both of those blocks. So we can do first what we want first. We want the last letter. We want to exchange the first with the last letter. So we begin with last plus, okay? This way we can concatenate plus the middle part, right? Plus the first part, right? And this way we should have what we wanted. We should have our string with the first and last letter exchanged. Let's paste here in CodingDors, fix the indentation, and let's run. This should work, okay? And as you can see, we printed all of the tests, right? Let's run and debug so we can take a look how this is actually working, right? Let's before putting a breakpoint, let's just send some value, okay, some string to the variable s, right? Let's print, let's call our function front back, and let's send, for example, the same example that we did here, code, for example, right? Let's save, let's put a breakpoint here, run and debug. Right, so here in the first line 11, we are going to print, but first we are calling the function front back, and we are sending the string code, right? Let's step into, here we are inside of our function since we called the function, right? And now we have inside of the string, the variable s, we have code, right? The string code. So we are going to the first block here, which we are saying that we want to take just the position 0 from this string. Let's step into, and now in the first block we have just the letter C. Now in the last block we are saying that we want to take the last letter, which is in position -1 since we are working with the length, right? And it understands that in the last position we have the letter E from code. Now we want to take the middle part. We are going from the second letter, which is in position 1, 0 is the first, 1 is the second, until the letter in position -1, which should be the last letter, but since -1 in this case is not included, we are going to take the position before, right? So let's step into, and then we have in the middle part just O and D. In this case, it won't matter the size of our string, right? Because we are taking from the second position until the position before the last position of our string. So if we have a string of 30 letters, it would still print the middle of the string, only without the first and the last letter in this case. And then we are just returning the last plus the middle plus the first part. If we step into, we can see that it returned from the front back function EODC, right? The middle of the string is intact, and we exchanged the first with the last letter from the string. Now we just have to print in our terminal right here, okay? As usual, guys, you can take a look at the AI suggestions here in CodingDors. You can see other ways to solve the same problem. Here you can see that we used the other example. As I said in the beginning, if I have a string with only one word, we should check if the length of our string, which we can have by the length of s, is less or equals to 1. If it's less or equals than 1, we have just one letter, or we have 0 letters, right? We should just return the string itself. Else we could do the simplified way, right? We don't have to separate in blocks and then concatenate. We can just concatenate right away with those blocks, those indexings, right? Just like the suggestion from the AI here. We just return it right away. They index the blocks from the string, right? You should return the same thing. Here, instead of using just -1, we are using the length of s -1, just like we did there in VS Code. It's the same thing, actually, right? You are saying that you want to take the whole length of your string in the position -1, okay? Since we start counting the length at 1 and the position at 0, we should do position -1 to take the last letter. So read slowly and keep in mind these other methods to solve the same problem, okay? Hello everyone, today let's work with problem first character from CodingDors, right? So write a function that returns the first character of a given string. Pretty easy, right? So we can see here some examples. Hello, we should just return the letter H. Word, we should return just the letter W. CodingDors, we should just return the letter C, right? Let's take a look in the theory. You can see here that we can actually use the indexing, right? Which is determined by these brackets, these double brackets, and the position that we want to print inside. In Python, indexing starts at 0. So 0, it's equals to the first letter of our string, right? So in this way, we could just think about what we should do. It's pretty easy. Let's take, as usual, to VS Code, our problem. Let's paste here this as comments so we can keep in mind what we should expect from the answer. Let's paste the function there as well. So pretty simple. We have our string inside our variable letter s, right? And we should take only the first letter of this variable. So I'm going to do this in just a few steps. We could just right away return here. But let's do, for example, in the string first, let's do the string that is in the variable s, brackets, okay? And we want to take the first position, the first letter, which is in position 0. We always start counting at 0 in Python, just like we saw in the theory. So inside of first, we have the first letter from the string. And now we can just return first, okay, right away. This way we should return just the first letter from our string. Let's copy this and paste here in CodingDors, okay? Fix the indentation, let's run. And here we can see we passed all green, okay? Let's run and debug here so you can see a little bit how it's working. So I'm going to print, I'm going to call our function, right? And let's send some string to our function. I'm going to say, for example, hi. And let's give some other example here, just as a second one with just word as well, just like in the example from CodingDors. Let's put a breakpoint here in line 11. And let's run and debug so we can see what's going on. So we are starting to read from the line 11. We are going to print after all. But first we have to call our function and send to our function the string hi, in this case. Let's step into, now we are inside of our function. okay? And inside of our variable letter S, we have the string hi, right? So yes, we are saying here to store in first, the variable first, which we don't have a value already to this variable. We want to take the first position, the position 0, from the string hi. So let's step into, now we have in the first variable just the letter H from hi, which is the first letter, and then we can just return this letter H to our code. You can see here, return it from the function, first character, the letter H, and then we can step into and print here in the terminal. Same thing for word. We can send word, and we are just taking the character in the first position. Let's step into, return, and then just print the letter W, okay, here in the terminal. And just like this, we can print only the first letter from our string, right? You can take a look here, other ways you can solve the same problem using the AI suggestions. You can see here in CodingDors, you have some other way to do the same problem. Here you can see a very curious way to solve the same problem. You can use actually the column and the position 1. The position 1 should be the second letter from our string. So how can we print the first letter indexing the second letter? Because the last position that we index in a string in Python will always be not included, okay? So if we have, for example, the column and the position of a letter of a string, we are not including the letter. We are including the letter before that indexing, only in the last part. Okay, if we have, for example, 0 until the position 2, we were going to print the first two letters, the letters in position 0 and 1, since 2 is not included, right? So in this case, just like 1 is not included, we are just going to print the letter in position 0, right? So that's it, guys, for our first character problem. Hey guys, today let's work with second character from CodingDors, right? Write a function that returns the second character of a given string. Okay, pretty simple. We have done some exercise. I think you guys have already worked with strings, right? We have first character and some other problems that I think you have solved. But let's take a look in the theory. We know that for indexing and accessing individual items in a collection by their position, okay, so to access some letter inside of a string, we can index by the position of that letter. Use brackets, the string, brackets, and the position that the letter is. So in this case, we want to take the second letter from our string. It's pretty simple, the same thing as taking the first letter, right? We can index and use the position, in this case 1, right? The second, since we start counting at 0, in Python, the first letter is in position 0, the second letter is in position 1. So you can use this to print the second letter. Let's paste here the expected results here in VS Code, so you can keep in mind. Let's paste as well the function. It's pretty simple. We just want to return the second letter. I'm going to store the second letter inside of another variable, so we can see when we run in debug some other details of how this is working. So let's do, for example, second equals to the letter S, right, which is the variable that our string is stored. Let's open brackets and let's say the position of the string that we want to take the letter, right, which is position 1. Since we know, just like I said, 0 is the first letter, 1 is the second letter, and since we start counting at 0. So here we have basically we are saying to store in the variable second the second letter of our string. Then we can just return second, right? Let's paste this code here in CodingDors. I'm going to fix the indentation. Let's run, and we can see we got all green. We just printed only the second letter from our strings in those examples, as you can see. Let's run in debug. Okay, we could do actually, instead of just storing in a variable, we could just have returned it right away. We could just put here, instead of second, just return, remove the equals, and we should have the same result. But now let's run in debug. Let's print here, call the function, okay, print, so you can see in the terminal what we are going to print at the end. Let's send some string. I can say hello, just like the example from CodingDors, right? Hello. And then let's use another word here, I don't know, father. Okay, let's save and let's put a breakpoint here in line 11. Let's run in debug. The first line we are reading in our code is line 11. So we are going to print after all, but first we are calling the function and sending to this function the string hello, okay? So if we step into, we are going inside of our function now, our variable letter S holds the value hello of the string hello. So now we are saying that we want to store in the variable second the second letter from our string hello, our string in variable S, or the letter in position 1, which is equals to the second letter. Okay, when we step into, you can see here that now in the variable second we have just stored the letter E. okay, which is the second letter from hello. Now we just return for our code this letter, the letter E, okay, now we have returned from the second character function, the letter E, and now we can just print in the terminal the second letter that we wanted to do, just like the problem second character asked us in CodingDors. The second example here, father, the same thing, we're going to send to the function father. We are telling to store in the variable second the second letter we step into, and then we return a from our function, then we can print in our terminal, right? And just like this, pretty simple, we can find the second letter and just print. Just like I said, we can just take out this second step here, erase this second, and just return right away the position that we want. If I run, we are going to have the same result, right? With just one step less. We can take a look, as always, in the AI suggestions from CodingDors in other ways to solve the same problem. Here you can see that it gives another way of indexing. It's a little bit trickier, but it's actually the same thing that we are seeing here, right? We are taking from the second letter until the third letter or the letter in position 2, but we know that when we are indexing in Python, the last position that we index here is not included. So we are actually just returning, in this case, the second letter, the letter in position 1, because the letter in position 2 is not included. We are going to return the same thing, but with a different code, okay? You can read some other things here in the AI suggestions on the second character problem and in all of the problems from CodingDors. So that's it for second character problem. Hey guys, let's solve here last character problem from CodingDors, okay? So write a function that returns the last character of a given string, right? We have already worked with some other problems dealing with strings, but in this case we want to just return actually the last character, only the last character. Right? It's pretty simple. It's not as simple as just printing the first letter to understand, but the code is just simple as that. Let's copy and paste here the expected results here in VS Code, so you can keep in mind what CodingDors is expecting us to return. Let's paste the function as well. Okay, so here let's take a look in the theory. Right away we can see here the string indexing, which we always work when we want to take one block of a string or one letter from a string, right? So the string indexing, this allows us to access individual characters in a string using their index positions. Okay, so string brackets -1 accesses the last character in the string. So now we can have a clue on how to return the last character, right? The position -1 should return to us the last character from a string. I just put here the string hello, for example, okay? And since we know, we start counting at 0 when we are talking about the position of the letters of a string, right? So we start at 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? But when we are talking about, for example, the length of the variable s, for example, which is the variable we are working here, we are talking about the whole length of our string. So then we don't start counting at 0. We just count just like the usual 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? We have 5 letters. That's the length of our string. It's 5, right? But the position of our letters is not done by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's done by 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If we start at 0. That's how we can explain the position -1 to the purpose of printing the last letter from a string, right? So going back to VS Code, if I do, for example, here return, okay, so the problem is asking us to return the last character. So if I do return in our string s, right, I want to return from the whole length of s the position in -1, right? So I want to take the length of the string s and I want to take the last letter, which is in position -1. Why? Because the length of the letter s is equals to 5. In this case, if we are working with the string hello, right? The length of our string is 5, right? But the position of the last letter is not 5, it's 4. That's why we want to take the length, which is 5, -1, because we want to reach the position 4 of our string. That's why we can use 5 -1, which is equals to 4. And then we can take the last letter. If I take this code and paste here in CodingDors and run, we are going to see all green, right? We just printed the last letter from both of the examples. Okay, we can do the same thing without using the length of s, without specifying here the length of s -1. We can just use, just like we can print the first letter, we use the brackets and the position 0 to printing the first letter, we can just use the brackets and -1 to print the last letter. In Python, the code will understand that we want to take the letter in position length -1. If you just type -1 without the length, parentheses, the letter s, then -1. This way we can run as well, and we are going going to print all green the same way, right? So that's how we can print the last letter. Let's print here so we can run and debug and see what's going on. So let's just give the example CodingDors gave to us, word, right? Let's put a breakpoint here in line 10, run and debug, right? So here we are going to print after all, but first we are going to call the last character function and send the string word to our function. Let's step into, now we are inside of the function, and we have stored in the variable letter S the string word. And then we are going to return in this way, inside of our string word, the length of the string -1, which will give the last letter, right? If we step into, we have just returned from last character the letter D, and then we're just going to print in the terminal. The same thing if we just erase this length of S, for example, and just keep it -1. It's going to give the same result to us. It's going to print the last letter, which in this case is the letter D. You can always take a look here in the AI suggestions that CodingDors give to us. We can just see here a little bit of what we just done to solve the problem. We can just use the -1 inside of the brackets. We don't have to type all of the things, the length, other things, right? Just like in this example as well. And as always, you can take a look. You can use like lists here to do the same thing. You can read and understand some other ways to do the same problem and get the same result here in CodingDors, right? So that's it for last character problem. Want to have one-on-one mentoring from us? Schedule your free meeting on meeting above. Bye-bye.